welcome to a special edition of Sideshow Live. We have special guest Daniel Logan. Hi, how's it going? Yeah, I'm super excited to have you in the studio. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I've wanted to do this for a very long time.
Well, I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Since it was young Boba, cloning around.
Young Boba cloning.
Yeah, I've always wanted to come
around. I love that.
Hang out with the Sideshow crew, right?
That's awesome. I mean, you're representing us with the Sideshow shirt and everything, so it works out. Yeah.
Got my Sideshow, repping the Sideshow,
yeah.
and you're repping the whole entire dark
Boba,
side.
So all the dark side guys in Empire. Boba's first appearance.
What can I say?
Yeah. So a little introduction to you. You were born in New Zealand. Yes.
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately.
I'm a savage, yes.
Oh my gosh. We love New Zealand here.
I grew up with sticks and stones. That's what made Boba so
just ruthless.
Yeah, so great of a character to play because he didn't have any friends either. So I know that I grew up on a water planet, but there must have been something he just played with, maybe little ants or rats or something.
Yeah, put together his first bounty hunter weapons with the sticks.
I like the way you think. We have to do a backstory on that. Daniel Logan Sideshow backstories.
And you started acting at a young age too, besides just bounty hunting. So you started acting at 10 years old?
Yeah, about 10 years old. I was a rugby player.
Oh, wow.
And an audition came at my rugby club, and they asked if my coach could put down two names from his team. So he put down me and his son's name. Well, I went in, and the first thing they said was, "Oh, he's a little too white to play the character," because I was meant to play a dark famous rugby player. So I basically won the people over. So this lady asked me, "Can I dive into the ground like as if I'm diving into mud?" And I dove into a concrete ground like I was diving into mud. And after she was like, "Great, you got the job." And that's how my whole career came to life.
Wow. So just you dove into your career literally.
I like how you said that. That's gonna be the title of my book.
Yeah, your autobiography.
I like that. You're like, I gave him that. I should have copyrighted it.
Oh man. You just have to dedicate the book to me. That's
okay.
Okay.
I'll put it on the front page.
Just that's all you have
Sideshow.
to do.
Much love always.
Oh, love it. Perfect. But you're most famous though for your role as Boba Fett in Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got that role?
That was pretty incredible. So I got into Star Wars. Before I auditioned, growing up in New Zealand, going backwards, we only had 3 or 4 TV channels in each household. And we were in the break between episodes of 6 and 1 where there was actually 16 years of no Star Wars.
Yeah, I remember. It was heartbreaking.
See, I didn't because I grew up in New Zealand where we had no Star Wars. So when the audition came, I remember my agent. I will never forget this. She called, hyperventilating and screaming, basically telling me she has me an audition. And I'm like, an audition? Like, what? So she was like, "I got you an audition for Star Wars." And I had never heard of Star Wars at the point, so I was like, okay, send me the script and I'll go for the audition. I was a little cocky at the time because I was booking every little thing in New Zealand. And she replies to me, "No, Daniel, you don't understand. Like, you're not going to get this role.
Yeah.
But we're going to forever be able to sell you as you're the kid who auditioned to be the kid in Star Wars."
Oh, wow.
Because
That's crazy.
What an ego boost, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get this.
But
Just the fact you're auditioning for this. We're going to live on.
We're so excited about the audition.
Oh, we were going to use that for the rest of my auditions. Oh, you want the kid who was about to be in Star Wars? He was the second pick.
And instead,
I got the role.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, I found out later that I auditioned out of about 5,000 children worldwide.
Wow.
And I remember the day. I went into this hotel room, and my grandmother and my mother followed behind me, and Robin Gerlin, the casting director, kind of like halted my mom and my nana, and she was like, "Only the boy," basically. So I went in the room, and we basically had a conversation like me and you are having now, but it was in a suite of a hotel room, and she was filming the whole thing. So I started telling her about my life and what I loved and passions and a bit about my family and whatnot. And then at the end of it, she says to me, "Now, Daniel, do you have any special talents?" And I just went and rented the VHS of episode 1, and I seen Darth Maul, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a Darth Maul character," because during the audition process, there was never no lines to read because no one knew Boba Fett was gonna come out. They didn't know until about 2 weeks before the film or 3 weeks, everything gets leaked last minute.
Yeah.
But it was until the last minute that Boba Fett was actually going to be coming back in episode 2. Those were the cool, fun Star Wars days
Yeah.
when everything was kept secret to the very last minute or was revealed on the film. And I didn't know I was going to play Boba Fett, so when she asked if I had any special talents, I started running. I said, yeah, sure, like, do you have like a broomstick? Knowing that we're in the nicest hotel in New Zealand. She says, no, why? And I said, well, because I can do this thing as a taiaha, which is basically the double-handed lightsaber. And she said, well, Daniel, this is Star Wars. Just pretend like you have one in your hand. So here I am looking like the Star Wars kid off YouTube, running around, like, whoa, 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 pretending like I had the stick in my hand, like running around the room. And people ask me today, like, what do you think got you the role? And I still think maybe it was like that Star Wars kid moment where I just let it loose and started running around the room and used my imagination. But the original Boba, Jeremy Bulloch, his the way he sees it is, well, think about having to watch that many videos, right? After about 1,500, George Lucas needed to go to the restroom or needed to eat something or just take a small break. So he paused, and it just happened to be my face that he paused on. Once he comes back, he's like, you know what? I'm done watching these kids. Just call this one. He would do.
I'm sure it was your imagination and being able to create a world.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, as I said, it's my creativity, imagination.
Yes, absolutely. So beyond just being Boba Fett on screen, you've also been able to reprise the role as Boba Fett in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, like the cartoon. Yes.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible.
And what's kind of different about playing Boba Fett on screen versus playing Boba Fett like through a voice where you're animated?
See, when I got into the world of voice acting, I had no clue of the talent it takes in order to be able to create a voice, bring it to life, and make people believe you're in that time period and having those emotions. The first day I walked in, I had like this big watch on, this necklace, and like long sleeve, like scratchy shirt, right? And they were looking at me like, he's not really familiar with this business, is he?
Oh my gosh.
So as I would talk, as you see, I move a lot.
Yeah, you're very animated.
Exactly. I'm an animated person, and then I have to become animated with a voice. It's hard. So I would sit there and I'd be like, one of the lines like, I will get revenge for you,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like I'm sitting there like doing this, but the whole time the shirt's going up and down, scratching, and my neck, my watch is like making this ching ching. So they're loving what I'm sounding like, but all the extra sounds and background noise, it's killing them, So I learned from that. And the next day I went in with just a t-shirt on, and sweatpants so that nothing scratched. But having to take all of this energy and hone it and kind of strap myself together and use it as a voice, it's very hard because I want to move. I want to take people on a journey with my body language. But with the Clone Wars, you had only a voice to do that.
Yeah.
And, I think as the seasons went on, I started becoming more and more comfortable with the character and the other voice actors and their characters to where he started to become Boba again, and I started feeling that I was back in the boots again.
Did you get to, I love that, back in the boots again, that's great. Did you get to actually be in the room with other voice actors, or were you just isolated by yourself?
No, it was incredible. So the way that they did the voice acting and how it made it so powerful was that they actually got us all together in the room at the same time.
Because in the Clone Wars, Boba's part of like a team,
Exactly.
So you need that interaction
And
with
that bond with, and then the way you respond with your voice is how it allows me to react with my voice too. So that's what helped a lot with that too. So when we got our script, you would have 6, 7 different characters in the room together who's in that scene, and you would just start reading the story together.
Oh my gosh.
And like you're saying your lines, I'm saying my lines, and we're just creating a story together. That ends up becoming an episode of the Clone Wars.
That's so amazing. And see, that speaks to how good that show was too, is that they were able to create that story, like all of you together. So
after 10 years of not, then they bring it back. It has to say something's
I
really
know.
good.
Oh my
A lot of
gosh.
people missed it.
yeah, I was so excited about that announcement at Comic-Con. I'm a big Clone Wars fan.
I was
so.
in Peru when it came out, and then, I'm barely getting signal up in Machu Picchu, and I get this bing, and I'm like, yeah, I know I was in the Clone Wars, but what? And like it's slowly like, the old day where it slowly
So you
downloads
almost
the
got
page.
your own scroll,
So
like
I'm
your own Star
"It's
Wars
what?"
scroll.
Exactly. I'm like, what? And then at the end of the trip, I finally found out it's coming back, and I was pretty excited for it too.
Awesome.
It's funny though. the way I got the role was pretty amazing. I love the way I got that role. So when I first met Dave Filoni at conventions, I would try and buy his meal every time I saw him. If he was at the hotel, I'd rush down, try and give the money before he could, try and bribe him for a job, And a couple of years went by after me bribing him, and seeing him at these cons. And next minute, I get a call like, hey, do you want to come reprise your role as Boba Fett? We would love to have you on the Clone Wars. I was like, of course. So when I get into the studio, I say to Dave Filoni, man, I can't believe all that bribing paid off and that you gave me a job. And he's like, what are you talking about? So I said, well, you gave me this job because I bought you those lunches and those drinks and everything, right? Like, helped you out. And he's like, no, matter of fact, we didn't know where to go with the storyboard. And we were sitting in the storyboard room, and George Lucas opens the door, pops his head in, and says, I want Boba Fett in the Clone Wars. Call Daniel Logan. And the only way I can explain is like, God's called you back to heaven twice.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah.
So you had like the maker himself be like, we want Boba Fett,
God,
bring Daniel Logan back. Oh my God.
The God of Star Wars touched me again. He pulls me back out. Boom. Come out of the dark, my boy. And that's how I got that.
That's such a great story.
I love George Lucas. I mean, he really changed my life. It's incredible.
So we have a couple questions coming in from our fans. Joe Lombardo would like to know if you still train with Ray Park at all.
I've been traveling a lot. I just had my boy 6 months ago, and I didn't realize how much work it entails to have to not only do conventions, but do films and travel for those, and then come home and be a father. But I love Ray. Ray's like my big brother. So I think I started looking more like Jabba the Hutt's tail. So he started like calling me back saying, hey, buddy, you need to get back to the gym. And he started posting online. So I do. I train with him quite a bit. I've trained with him for the last 12 years, 13 years, on and off. But because I live in Orange County and he lives in L.A., there's quite a bit of difference in travel. But he's basically the one who really taught me the double-handed lightsaber.
Oh, wow.
I know how to do his flips. He's taught me quite a bit. He's a very, very amazing and talented man. And he's not only a great martial artist, but he's able to teach people so well, too. But I'm just very fortunate that we became like family. His kids call me Uncle Daniel.
Oh, that's
and
great.
My son calls him Uncle Ray, but he will be. But
Okay.
that's how close we are, And I was very fortunate he took me under his wing. And
So then I have to ask, do you prefer the lightsaber or do you stick to your blasters?
Well, depends on where I am. If I'm just taking a cool photo off, the blaster's always the cool one, But if I had to actually physically show off, then it's cool to get a lightsaber in my hand and then bust out some Darth Maul moves,
that's
with
awesome.
spinning the lightsaber. And people are like, what? But then they forget I'm trained by the Sith Master himself.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
you never know in the next Star Wars movies, Boba might pull out a double-handed
I know.
lightsaber. Like, where'd
Who
that
knows?
come from?
Yeah, Boba might be force sensitive. He's still a little bit of a mystery.
He's very sensitive. Oh, wait, we're not going there. Sorry. It's like after his dad, he's still in therapy.
Oh, so speaking of that, so Ian Thompson would like to know, did Daniel have any idea at the time how the scene of him holding Jango's helmet would become iconic? And was that scene scripted or did you improvise it at all?
Ian, that's a great question. So the best thing about that scene was I had just finished getting off Geonosis scene. It's so funny, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I just got off Geonosis.
I was on Geonosis for a couple of days.
So we just finished those scenes, and they were like, all right, Daniel, thanks. Like, you can go back, take your wardrobe off, and get comfortable. Because we weren't allowed to walk around the backlot or the studio with any of our costumes on. Because there was these guys who were up on the...
pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
They were
okay.
taking these long lens cameras, and they were shooting everybody from the top of this... they would literally climb on the top of this sports arena, like a sports field arena.
Yeah.
Risk their life just to take these pictures. So we had to keep getting undressed, get back dressed, get undressed. So I was going back to get comfortable, and I hear my God himself, where is my Boba Fett? And I'm like, huh? And then they're like, oh, he's just back in here. He's just getting all his wardrobe. And they're like, oh, tell him to get back in his suit. I need him for one thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. George says, yeah. So I start getting all the little intricate pieces back on and everything. And we start walking out of the wardrobe room back towards the clay Geonosis area. Because that whole entire set was filled with a whole, like a foot thick deep of clay that they had imported from somewhere.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. They just had dump truck after dump
I mean,
truck.
that makes sense. It's such a unique color.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and such a beautiful color that it, you couldn't have done it any other way. You couldn't have CGI'd that. So he walks me out into it. He gives me the helmet and just says, "Hey, can you do this?" But because he's a little older and his knees were obviously a little older, he gets down on one knee and puts the head. He shows me exactly how to do it. So I'm like, okay, and I stand there and I kind of look like I'm taking a number 2, and I do it like that, you know what I mean? Because my knees are obviously a lot younger. I can do the crouch down and the
Yeah.
So one take and goes, okay, thank you, that's great, I got what I need. And I'm like, oh, cool, thanks.
So one of
Perfect.
the most iconic images from the prequels is you with that, and it was done in one take.
One take. And the thing is, and that's George Lucas. That's how George Lucas, if you're a kid and you need a little bit of help to see what you need to, or he gives you that bit of advice, you are able to run with it just because of the words he's able to tell you and the way he can, describe what he wants you to see or do in a scene. So it wasn't until I watched the movie that I saw Jango Fett get his head cut off for the first time.
Oh my god!
I had no clue that I held this helmet to my head, and my dad's head was actually literally chopped out of it a second and a half before.
No.
So when I watched the movie for the first time at the premiere, I was the only person in the movie theater to cheer because he got his head chopped off. So when they came back later on and like, why did you cheer? Because your dad got his head chopped off. Everyone else went, ooh.
Yeah, I remember seeing that going.
I thought in episode 3, me and Jango Fett were going to be the 2 bad guys again. So when I found out Jango was gone,
You're like, me.
I'm the baddest bounty hunter in the galaxy now.
That makes sense, actually. That totally makes sense.
I was so greedy that I was just thinking of only myself, that I was going to get a jetpack on the next one.
Oh.
And maybe a blaster, like they promised me on episode 2.
So for a lot of people, you are Boba Fett. Like, you're the face of Boba Fett, and it's your face under the helmet. Does that is it strange thinking about that, and how did you grow into that role?
It's being a huge Star Wars fan now, and even bigger Boba Fett fan. For me, it's humbling, but I still see Boba Fett as the guy under the mask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't know the face, but when George brought me to life and he gave the character a face, and then we continued on through the Clone Wars and a lot, quite a bit more through, it was an honor to become not only the face but the voice of this generation and the last, maybe not the original generation, because they all sort of like, no, Boba Fett should never have been revealed. He was a mysterious character where, but I think as they're making more and more films, the prequels actually starting to get more and more respect and love. They're like, well, maybe that Boba kid wasn't so bad after all. Okay, I guess he is my Boba Fett now.
Yeah.
No, but I realized that you had to be, it's for me now, I'm an ambassador of the new generation for this film. Like I was a whole generation's Boba Fett. That episode 1, 2, and 3, that's what was their Star Wars.
Yeah.
There's a new generation now they've gotten The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Solo. These are starting to become their generation films. And then you have the original, which are usually grandparents or older parents. That is 4, 5, and 6. That was their Star Wars. And if you see between the periods, most of them are happy or not happy or whatever. There's a little rift between them all, but there's also such a collective called Star Wars, which we all can connect through, good or bad.
Yeah, that's true. So you're heavily involved to that in the fan scene, and you always take a lot of time to connect with the fans at conventions or even through your social media. Is the Star Wars fandom, important to you?
Oh, 100%.
Awesome.
I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them, and either would anybody. I mean, I've done conventions for 15 years, and I realized that there's only so many seats available at a convention, but somehow I keep getting invited back. But when you look around at a convention and you see a whole bunch of people that have done so well with their lives, but then they go to a convention and they don't even look up. It's like, hi, Mr. D. Hello. Sign your autograph, and then they just push you along. It's for me, watching that from this side of the table, I always think to myself, if I was on that side of the table, I'd be like, well, where's the refund policy? If I buy anything from Target, Walmart, like if I'm not happy with my sale, I think it was a little broke or wasn't thought what I got, you can usually go somewhere else and you can get a refund. You know, you can figure out how to get like store credit.
Right.
Or they should say galactic credits, you know, but I valued that to where I said, you know what? If I ever wanted to meet someone or my family ever wanted to meet someone and they did that to my family or me, I would be so heartbroken. Yeah. So I treat everybody as if I wanted to. Like, I was just talking with my buddy Cullen at one of the last shows they were at. These people said to me, man, it's so wonderful to see and hear you and tell stories. You're such an energetic guy and you just share so much. Well, I had a huge line at like Denver, Colorado, Denver Comic Con or something like that. And I remember hearing this guy stand in line like, dude, just shut up already, right? So, like, I thought I heard him, too. And, like, he was, like, maybe 6, 7, 8 people back, you know. And the people in front of me right there were, like, getting the best interaction, right?
Yeah.
But then the next guy got the same interaction. This guy, so it takes a little long,
right.
a little while to meet me, right?
But, when he gets to the front, he'll get that same interaction, too.
That's what my buddy Colin said. He goes, you know, when that guy got to the front, he was so, like, overwhelmed by I actually gave him the time too that it changed his whole perception of me in line to hurry up, stop talking. To when he got there, he's like, wow, like this was the best meet and greet ever. He's like, I didn't just feel like I was a cattle cow. Now I feel bad for telling you to hurry up and shut up back there. And I'm like, it is what it is, man. I was like, my mom says I got verbal diarrhea. I just kind of see it as a motor mouth on unfiltered thoughts, you know. I just want to share with the world.
Yeah, but it's great.
Well, there used to be meet and greets. Now they're more like, how much money can I get out of these people and get them moved on the quickest, you know? And that's why it kind of terrifies me with the future of conventions, because if they continue the road they're going on, they won't last as long as they have, you know? And I mean, look at San Diego Comic-Con. It started as a comic collecting convention where there was
hotel lobby.
Yes, you remember, right?
Yeah.
And it's the biggest thing ever now. So, you know, as long as we keep creating fun experiences like that, where us geeks and nerds can go, you know, and not be judged or feel, you know, accepted in, it's our world, you know, and that's where I kind of give back to as well.
So, speaking of being a geek and a nerd, is it true that you have your own personal Boba Fett armor?
Well, you know, it's funny because I think having ADHD and being a grown man with it, I still don't think, you know, so I called the Mandalorian mercs and I'm like, hey guys, I've heard that you guys are giving a lot of people who aren't a Boba Fett, like a lot of Boba Fett helmets, like, what about the Boba Fett? Yeah. So it takes them years and years and years. And I think at the celebration or one of them, they finally like get me this one. But the guy, the paint didn't sit right. And I'm kind of like a guy, like if I've got a Honda Civic, I'm going to be out there waxing that Honda Civic, like shining it. Like that's my Honda Civic, you know? So there was like this helmet that I got Kevin, and it looked like someone, after it had dried, it basically looked like someone had cracked eggs all over it and then like had it fried so that it just all looked like toothpaste had been sprayed all over it because the paint didn't dry right.
Yeah.
So I take this around to all these conventions, right? And I'm so proud of it. I'm doing photo ops with it, you know, like, hey, you want to hold my helmet? And I have this one guy come up to me. His name's Nino, and he's
Wasted Fett.
Wasted Fett, yes.
Yeah.
He comes up to me, and he's like me, a little outspoken, I guess. And he's like, man, I'm a little disappointed. And I said, well, what are you talking about? He goes, aren't you embarrassed? And I'm like, so he's starting off with these kind of short-liners, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, bro, like, your helmet, it's kind of embarrassing, man. Like, you're the character, and us fans have better helmets and better armor than you have. I'd really like to make you one.
Aww.
And I'm like, what? Of course. And he's like, yeah, no, bro. Like, I'd seriously like to make you one. So I was like, well, just being smart that I am. I'm like, well, while you're making the helmet, might as well make me the rest of the armor too.
Oh my gosh.
And he turns around and says, it would be my honor. I was like, what?
That's so awesome.
Then he's like, hey, can we? And I had the Mandalorian mercs come and measure me like 20 times, right? Like, I never got a flight suit. I had this one lady come to my house one time, Katie. She measured me. Mm-hmm. Within weeks later, she sent me back like a Cinderella fitting flight suit. Like, it's so beautiful. So I had all these guys like donating their time, their talents to my build. And like I want to say 10 to 12 people or donated their time and their
Wow.
talents, and I have the most beautiful Empire Strikes Back armor. But I have a couple more coming.
That's so
I'm
cool.
not really allowed to talk about them,
Okay.
but I might have
We
a
want
holiday special coming.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I
that's
was
so
the first one to say I wanted the holiday special,
Uh-huh.
but because he knows everybody
Yeah.
and he can paint, he goes and builds a holiday special within months, and I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
it's like, that was meant to be my holiday special.
So do you have a favorite Boba Fett moment? That's Robert Tremoli asked the question. Tremoli.
Robert. On screen or off screen? On screen, my favorite Boba Fett moment. You know, I like the holiday special. That was like, I don't know why, but it was like, I loved cartoons growing up. You know, when he was riding the big dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
I love that, and people give it such a hard time. You know what I mean? But I mean, the holiday special for a whole. I mean,
You can
but
take it
that
or leave
moment
it.
where you saw Boba Fett right before like the release of all the merchandise, you know what I mean, or at the time of the merchandise, it was just a perfect crossover, which helped him to move over forward into the
Empire.
Empires.
It's okay.
But you know what? My favorite moment. Most people don't realize this, but my favorite moment was the day that they took him from being a super trooper and turned him into the Boba Fett that we now know today.
Yeah.
So most people don't realize, but back in the day, Boba Fett was, as we know, as a prototype Boba Fett, all white, was actually going to become the Super Troopers, which was ultimately meant to be this. Not see a guy who never saw Star Wars before he's in the film, right?
Yeah.
Tell you what, I'm the biggest nerd now.
I
ever. This is all I talk with my friends now.
Yeah,
go,
I love it.
Oh yeah, but you know, if Boba was to grow up this way, how? And I don't know. My poor wife, she's like, oh man. But so then they realized it would be far too costly and way too time consuming. And that's when Gary Kurtz, I think, ended up saying, hey, why don't we make this guy a standalone bounty hunter, which we all now today love and adore. Off screen, you know, every moment I got to spend with Jeremy Bulloch. The fact is now he's in retirement. You know, guys, he hasn't really been speaking about it, but he's gone sick. You know, as we get older, your body or your brain, they will start to take a toll on you, and they don't work the same way. That's why you got to appreciate your youth and take, you know, care of your health and your body. But he started with Parkinson's a couple of years back, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And I think that as a respected man and bounty hunter that we all know him as, he wanted to leave the circuit before all of our visions were of that.
Yeah.
And then we get to see that bright, wonderful man that we always loved to go see because he was a friendly smile.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you know, those are the great moments, but also sad moment. You know, being so young in this franchise, all my friends are now starting to go towards retirement or the grave. You know, and I'm just starting off. You know, and my career's just starting off again, and it's like.
But hopefully you can make new friends in the coming generation.
It
as
will.
well.
You know, I'll become the originals. You know, to the new guys, but you know, I just.
Pass on what you have learned.
Exactly, you know. But they've all been so wonderful, you know. And Jeremy Bulloch, I hope he does come to Celebration just to come say hi.
Yeah.
You know, not if not even to sign, just to give us one last goodbye. You know,
Yeah,
and
like a hug.
I'd love
like
that.
a Boba Fett hug.
Exactly.
Yes. And apart from Boba, do you have another favorite Star Wars character?
My favorite character before I got to know Ray Park. My new character is kind of a Darth Maul, just because I love what he introduced to the new generation.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that new lightsaber, it really touched a lot of people. I mean, the Kylo Ren lightsaber, they're trying to, you know, extend it and make a new one as well, but I don't think it took off quite like that, the double-handed did. But Yoda is my favorite. He was always my favorite. I grew up small. I grew up weird. You know, like, I didn't know how to talk. I didn't know how to read properly. Like, I had all of these, like, kinks that Yoda had in life, and I felt he gave us someone that we could say, hey, look, I feel like I'm parts of him, but he's still the baddest and the most deadliest Jedi in the Jedi Council, you know? Like, he's literally the strongest. So if a guy who speaks backwards, a guy who's less than 2 feet tall, whatever, you know, if he can be someone at such a high status, then, you know, that allowed me to have possibility I could be anything too.
Oh, wow. I love that.
There was this little kid, right? And I just saw on the news before I came out here, and it just crushed my heart.
I know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, he'd been bullied
broke my
at
heart
school,
too.
right? And they asked him back, like, why don't you bully back or whatever, or why don't you get mad when these people bully you? And his response back was, it's not the Jedi way. And I kind
I
of getting
started
goosebumps too. Yeah.
crying.
I was brushing my teeth when I heard that, and I was like, oh. I just wanted to reach out to the kid and hug him and tell him, hey, I'll put a bounty on anyone that picks on you, you know? But then I was like, you can't write that kind of stuff online. Well, you should say, their bounties will get them eventually, buddy. Their bounties will catch up with them eventually, you know, something? But
Yeah.
you have to be kind of political online. So
Yes, a little bit.
I felt bad for the kid, but his response was perfect.
I know.
I tell you, it's not the Jedi way.
Star Wars teaches such amazing lessons in
It is.
general. So to shift gears just a little bit, do you collect anything?
I do. I collect a lot. A lot of boba, actually. If you come to my house, there's a lot of boba all over my house.
Understandably.
But I used to collect a lot of the Marvels.
Oh, yeah.
I love the Marvels. That's what got me addicted to Sideshow at first, was the old Hulk busts and
Oh my
like
gosh,
you know,
yeah.
It was sad because you guys would make little busts, like the little one with the X-Men one.
Yeah.
But I got like 2 of them, but I'd always break the
Yeah,
fangs off because
uh-huh.
it was so top heavy that it would fall off the shelf if you like knocked the shelf, and they would break. And that's when I was like, ah. So then I buy another one that did the same, and I'm like, ah. And that's how I like to keep everything pristine. But yeah, the Marvels franchise, I loved it. And then once they started taking off with the Iron Man series, I started relating so much to Boba Fett, even more so through Iron Man, because I was like, whoa, how cool would it be if Boba had like a secret lair or a part of a Slave One where he went into a side room and he pushed the door open, and then next minute you have like all the different Boba Fett armors, from the prototype to the holiday special to the Mantis to,
Oh my
you know what I mean,
gosh,
to all
yeah.
these different armors.
That'd be so
Because
cool.
there's so many different armors that from the backstories you can go back to. I mean, the deluxe they just came out with the 2 eyes, you know what I mean? And if you just had them all lined up, you know what I mean, ready to just get into.
So is
you
that
know?
the future of your house right there?
It is actually. Yeah. When I walked in and I saw the whole entire display of the Iron Man, I was like,
And now all the Boba Fetts.
exactly. I just revisioned them all,
That's
different colored Boba
amazing.
Fetts.
Do you have another fandom that you're into besides Star Wars? I mean, you just kind of answered that question. Is it Marvel or is it something else?
Well, actually, my love is for actually video games.
Really?
Yeah. So
What do you play?
I used to play. Now being a father, it's hard to
Yeah.
get on them. But I was very good at Call of Duty. Mainly
that makes sense. Blasters.
exactly. You know, shooting games or stuff like that. But I used to just sit on Call of Duty all day, every day, and I would be one of the guys who ranked from 1, 2, or 3. I was mainly 1 or 2, not to brag. But then you get off and it's like running a marathon,
Yeah.
right? You could be the best marathon runner and you're out front running the first, but you take a minute break or you sit down for a second. There's going to be younger, quicker, like, you know, more stamina right behind you. He's going to take your spot. And then it's going to get harder to get back in there.
Wow.
So that's why that's my excuse to be getting off PlayStation right now. It's because I'm finding it hard to get back into the race.
We have another question coming in from the audience. T-Birch42 is asking, so Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen have gotten kind of flack for their roles in the prequels. Do you ever get a similar type of negative attention, or is it mostly positive coming from your fans?
You know, I get it too. You know, I mean, back when I was young, I grew up and I was a rugby player and a boxer. You know, before I started doing martial arts, and I had 2 big brothers that bullied me all my life. I mean, there was no like bullying or picking on or beating up thing you could go to at a school and say, hey, I'm getting beaten at home or I'm getting beaten up at school. Yeah. You just had to deal with it, and you kind of went home with your beating. So I would have these like grown men at first. When I first got in, I was like 15, 16. And they would write like terrible things, especially the English fans. I don't know why, but they're so brutal. So I would write back like, "Oh yeah, you want to fight?" You know, like, I was a pretty like, you know, tough little kid. But right as I was about to push return, my manager would somehow feel the force of the dark side coming out of me, and he would come in and be like, "You can't write that," and he would like delete, and then I wouldn't send them. But it was literally just as I was pushing return, he would always feel like I was online.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of got off for years, because I was like, well, I don't have to listen to this, but I let my managers kind of run it, but I saw that it never really went anywhere with the following. It just had the same 2,000.
Yeah.
And I realized I had to start giving more of me. So I started getting on. Well, this one guy, he decides that he wants to take his time out of his day to write me a message and say, "You're not the real Boba Fett." So I'm like, "Oh, all right, I'll check out this message, see what this negativity is all about."
right.
So then he sends another message, "You're just a kid," and then it has a picture of my face when I open the door, like, right? So then he goes in and sends another message because I'm not responding, right? And he sends a "This is the real Boba Fett," and he sends a picture of Jeremy Bullock, with the gun shooting out like this.
That classic Boba
Yes,
Fett
yes.
picture.
So I usually don't entertain this but I'm like, man, I'm gonna write something back. So I'm like, buddy, I'm glad that you took your time out of your day to think about me in this way. I really appreciate that you've put so much thought and effort into this character. And, I kill people with kindness. So when they write negative things, I'm like, well, thanks so much for your support. Or like with the new film and everything's being advertised, they're like, oh, Daniel Logan sucks. He shouldn't be him. It should be Timothy Morrison, which was Jango Fett. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I'm loving that. That's not an insult to me because I love Timothy Morrison so much, like a father. But I was the very first one to come out and push that he should be Boba Fett if I'm not him.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, what are you talking about? And I'm like, think about it like this. He is the clone.
Yeah.
I get clone from him. Mm-hmm. So I could play him to his mid 30s, maybe hitting, early 40s. But if he's past his 50s, 60s, he should be Jango Fett.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He needs to look like that.
Exactly, right? And so
it.
people are like, oh. Well, now people are using it against me. I'm like, we don't want you to be him. We should think. I'm like, well, that's very good.
I think that too.
when they come back around in like 20 years and they do a young Jango Fett movie.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
See, the future of
so
Star Wars.
It works. Yeah, Star Wars is all about cycles. So, speaking of that, Vaspa803 would like to know if your son has a favorite Star Wars character yet.
No, not yet, but I wish I could show you him. He's dressed in a Boba Fett outfit.
He is here dressed as Boba Fett today.
So, I better be his favorite Star Wars character. I'll put a bounty on my son. My son,
but you'll have to collect it because you're the
that.
Yeah, it's again cycles and coming back around.
I'll just be collecting my own galactic credits. I'll let him be, I guess. Yes. I hope he just whatever he finds, he is able to take a positive outlook from the character and then apply that to his life. That's all I care about. For me, Boba Fett's kind of got stuck with me, so I become like kind of a collector of money. I'm like a bounty hunter. I go wherever the money is, to collect it. So I don't know. I'm stuck with Boba, I guess.
Not a bad character to be stuck with.
Not at all. But no, he's definitely going to be a Star Wars fan.
Even when we were walking him through the hallway, he was like, he saw Rey with her lightsaber and like laughed. See, so he knew.
I'm the weirdest father, so like he's been teething lately. So I'll pull out my Rey lightsaber and I'll sit in the dark and back, like doing all these things, and he's just sitting there like, what a dad do I have? Or like I'll take him up next to my mannequin of Boba and I'll like let him touch him and introduce him so that when he does get introduced to the convention circuit, he's not terrified of all these people walking around in the outfits and the armors.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I'm trying to introduce him early.
Yeah.
So he's ahead of the game.
Oh, that's so amazing. Well, that's all the questions we have for you. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so
welcome.
Fun.
Hey, you know what? I'm very blessed to be able to come out and be a part of this today.
We love having you out, and you can come back anytime.
Make sure you keep up with the figures, okay?
Yeah.
If you're not with the new deluxe, then you don't have the latest.
I know, you need that new Boba Fett deluxe for sure.
It is beautiful. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I like how the fact that you took into consideration that people might want to change up the hands.
Mm-hmm.
They might want to change up this, might want to change up that. I don't want to give away all of it because you got to buy it to be able to see it because it's such a beautiful figure. But yeah, you guys do excellent, and I'm just very honored to be a part of it.
Thank you so much,
and
thank you all for watching today.
Yes.
It was really awesome, and tune in for more episodes of our special edition of Sideshow Live. So thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to let your geek side show.
And thanks for your questions. Have a great day. May the dark force be with you all.
The dark force?
Oh, sorry, the light force.
May the force be with you.
Dare you?
Thank you guys for watching.